Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Shawn Morse, and Shawn was mayor of Cohoes. Now, for those listening in other parts of the country, Cohoes is like right near Albany, and it's in Albany County, but it's a different city. So, tell us a little bit about your troubles and what happened with the governor, the former governor.
Well, sadly, my troubles started with some real personal family issues, where my family was trying to deal with addiction that was destroying us and kind of ripping our family apart. And we tried to keep it as private as we could, but unfortunately, like many families, when we decided we had to make some real tough choices, it became a public display. And a lot of people in politics are always looking to hurt anybody they can. It's a dirty, rotten business. And so we dealt with the addiction, but it became a popularity story for the Times Union, and really just exploded into an attack on me. And it was a very difficult time in our lives. And it was a time when politicians were all walking around the capital region talking about how important it was to help people who were addicted and help fight the opioid cause. And whatever we had to do to fight that cause, we would. And unfortunately, when it was happening right here in front of their face to one of their own, they decided to kill me. And kill me they tried. And it was a long, sad, drawn out battle in the public. And at one point, the governor decided that he would pretend he knew where Cohoes, New York was, and pretend he knew about my family and the problems they were facing. And he come out and told me that I needed to resign. He didn't know anything about my family. He didn't care about the struggles we were facing. He didn't care about all the lies that were being said. He just knew that in order for him to get the endorsement of the Times Union, he really had to come out and beat me down. And I called him the most corrupt governor in America, which he was. And soon after, all kinds of legal problems started for me, stuff that would have never happened to anybody in politics ever, because you'd have to go after every politician, including himself. Um, and I got caught up in all kinds of issues with my family, which eventually I was cleared of and got custody of my kids. And I got the legal issues that I had a battle, which I totally believe wholeheartedly. You know, he sent those people after me. He sent the state police after me after they already cleared me of anything, because they knew that I didn't do what was said. And he wasn't happy with that, so he told them to go back and reinvestigate me, which I think is inappropriate and certainly um, purely politics, because I hurt his feelings calling him the most corrupt governor. Then the federal government came after me, and I was fighting on all fronts, man. I was trying to save my family's life. I was trying to save my wife. I was trying to continue to do my job that I took an oath to do. I was trying to battle through all these allegations against me and making me out to be a bad man, when I think I spent the most part of my life being a very good man. And in the end, I think Cuomo's the one who got the people to put a thumb on me that I couldn't lift off. I didn't have the finances to do it. I won custody of my daughter just before a trial that I was getting prepared to go to. I was getting ready to sell my house so I could fight it, because I was not going to concede to something I know in my heart I didn't do. But sometimes the circumstances require you to step back, make a calculated decision that's what's best for your family, and that's what I had to do. And then I end up leaving my position, and I've been out of office and out of politics for the last 7 years.
So when all of this was happening, uh, Andrew Cuomo, what was his rationale for getting involved in a mayoral candidacy in the city of Cohoes. There
Well,
had
it was an interesting time in politics because the Times Union, which is the biggest newspaper, as you know, wasn't a big fan of Cuomo towards that period of time, and it looked like he might not be getting the endorsement. And this is coming from inside of that newspaper where people were contacting me as they were trying to destroy me. Other people were trying to give me a heads up what was taking place. And so it was almost like if Cuomo came out and destroyed me, because the Times Union put a lot of effort into trying to do that, and I don't think they were making much headway, that he would get the endorsement of the newspaper. And I know that almost sounds like, could that really be happening? But when you look at the world today and you see all the things that are finally coming to light, I think it's easy to realize it did happen. And so he ended up calling me out to resign. I've been a fighter my whole life, kid from the projects who only knows one way is when you attack me, I fight back. And I call them the most corrupt governor. And they played that over and over on the local TV stations. And, he got the endorsement of the paper. He put his thumb on my head. He sent whoever he had connections with after me. I was cleared of all the things by the state police, the colony police, the Cohoes police, all who investigated me. And then they sent the federal government after me and changed the whole dynamics of what they said I did. And I had to make a tough decision at the end, which was whether I go to a trial or do I concede so that I could take care of my daughter and bring her home and we just try to move on with our lives. And I chose certainly my daughter over politics, and I knew that it would put a stain on my life to the people that hated me or didn't like me politically. But I knew the people who loved me and the people that knew the truth would certainly understand what I had to do for my family. And I think that was his rationale. He wanted the endorsement. He was running in the campaign, and his favorability was starting to slide. It was doing the Me Too movement, and they used all that against me. And so he benefited by beating me down.
what I remember very clearly is once he did that to you, all of the other elected uh, politicians in this area followed suit. They were all against you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to just move. I just had a new granddaughter and she's crying, and so I wanted to get out of
Oh,
there so you
okay.
could hear me. Um, oh yeah, absolutely. Soon as that happened, Cynthia, the Democratic establishment, they all came after me. Unlike they do today, where you can talk about, shooting your opponent's kids and fantasizing about that, and they
Mm.
all stand behind you. The Pat Faheys and the Kathy Sheens and all of those people that I was not a big supporter of came after me, and the people that knew me most were the people that stood by me. The Gil years, the Shawn Morse, who knew my character, knew me my whole life, and knew a lot of what was going on. And Danny McCoy, who, at one point I was really upset with Danny because I spoke with Danny on a daily basis and explained for a year all the stuff that was happening at my house and my concerns and my fears and my struggles. And it seemed that everybody was afraid of Governor Cuomo, so they all just took his side. And I dealt with it. I rolled with the punches. I took the heat. I took the beating, and I'm a better man for it. My family's doing outstanding, and I have 5 grandkids, and my kids are doing
Wow.
well, and you know, life is as good as it can be.
So, then he stepped down because of scandals.
Well, he stepped down because he was the most corrupt governor in America, and I knew what he was doing, and I heard about these things for quite some time. And I've never been a fan of that kind of stuff, and I shared some thoughts out loud about it, so that probably ruffled his feathers. And at the end of the day, he took it on the chin as well as he gave it, didn't he?
So then he was out of the spotlight for for a few years, and all of a sudden he jumps into the mayor's race. And I was talking to a friend of mine who lives in Queens, and he says, "Oh, without a doubt, Cuomo's gonna win. It's a shoo-in." Well, Cuomo was lazy. He didn't campaign. He thought that he had it in the bag. But when he lost, the viciousness that's going on in New York City right now astounds me. What do you think about all of the stuff um, that's happening in New York?
Well, what I think is funny is that all the things outside of this woke world that we live in that's happening today is kind of where I've always been, right? I was always a strong, independent voice. I rocked the boat because in order to get things done, you had to rock the boat. Otherwise, you just became a get along, go along, and that's not what I wanted to do. I hated politics, but I loved to govern. I wanted to bring my city back. I wanted to be in the legislature to help the people that needed help the most. I think I can take a lot of kudos for saving the nursing home. And as you know, one of the greatest feats I had was holding them up from getting rid of that nursing home, and then getting all these phone calls years later when I was gone that they built a new nursing home. But I rocked the boat for years because that's who I was. I was a guy that said you gotta either get on the train or you get run over, and that's not being a cocky man. That's politics, because most politicians, the first thing they do when they get elected is trying to figure out how to get elected. And I didn't care about getting reelected. I wanted to get things done. So I pissed a lot of people off. Today, that's what they're doing. They don't care. Today, that's a badge of honor. When I was doing it, I was, it was treason, and they killed me for it. I think New York City is in a lot of trouble. I think a socialist New York City is going to be a disaster. And believe it or not, I despise Cuomo as much as you can despise a man, but I would root for him to win because I care more about the country and the people than I do about my own personal vendetta against the guy that destroyed my life without ever knowing me and could care less about what happened to my family. And Cynthia, not one of those people who were using my wife, giving her gift cards, giving her money, writing up things for her, and having her say that it was her that wrote them, and all the shit that they were doing to me. Not one of them showed up to her wake. Can you believe that? Not one of them.
Mm.
Um, so they used us right to the end, and not one of them cared when my wife lost her battle. And I learned a lot about those people. I learned a lot about politics and the reality of what kind of people are involved in politics. They're snakes. They only care about themselves. They could care less about the people they represent. And I think Cuomo is one of the biggest ones, but he's better than the other alternative. And if I really have to, bet my money, I want to bet it on the guy that, at least is a Democrat from the standpoint he's not a socialist. And so that's kind of how I look at things.
Well, time will tell. First of all, I don't think that Mondami is destined to win. I think between now and election day, which is 6 days away, I think something might happen. I'm really afraid that something might happen. And, politics today is really, it's treacherous. There's no other word for it. It's a treacherous game.
Well, I think I was Donald Trump before Donald Trump was. I just happened to be the Democratic Donald Trump who had everybody and their brother trying to destroy me, and nobody really cared, and they didn't care about our lives, all because I wanted to fight for my city, to bring it back to the days of an all-America city once again. And we were very successful. The city seen more development than it did in the last 60 years. The investments were in the tens of millions. We were the fastest growing city in the state of New York 2 years in a row, which is unbelievable, right here in Cohoes, New York. Our downtown was being printed in magazines because of its great success. I had people calling me from all over the country asking me how we were getting things done. And I think sometimes success pisses off other people. And so the best way to beat the guy who's beating them successfully is to destroy him. And I've moved past all of that, Cynthia, but there's still people who will send me, messages and call me names and call me a thief and a wife beater and all that stuff. And I've learned to be able to just turn a cheek on that because it didn't matter that I got cleared of all those things. Never made the newspapers. And it doesn't matter, anymore what people think. I know my own truth. My family knows the truth. We're happy, we're healthy, we're doing well. And, as far as politics, it doesn't even cross my mind. But I'll tell you a funny story. Um, Last year, I got over 700 write ins to become the mayor of the city, the most in the history of the city by about 699. And I wasn't even on the ballot to run. So I think there's still a lot of people that believed in my professional career and what I was able to achieve. And they were able to separate, the political lies. And I think today, because of today and what's happening to Donald Trump, people can actually say, wow, they really do this. And so in some sense, I feel a little vindicated. In other sense, we have to live with the tragedy of addiction. And the people that attacked me, the Pat Fahey's and all of the other, the mayor of Albany and all the other, I like to call them clowns, Neil Breslin, all them, they don't mean nothing to me. They're meaningless. And I really could care less what they have done, what they say. I moved on with my life. I'm rooting for New York City because I got friends and firemen down there and police officers that I know really well. And I'm afraid this Mandami would destroy them. And although I think Cuomo is an evil man, I guess the evil man you know is better than the evil man you don't.
Oh boy, that's quite a statement.
Well, that's how I feel. So you asked me to come on your show to tell you how I feel. Do you think I was
Right,
going to change the man I
right,
was? I think I've always said it the way I felt, right?
right. So when all of the other politicians were ganging up on you, and in hindsight, do you think any of them have any remorse today about how they treated you?
Well, I think some of them who were truly people that were my friends or at least, good acquaintances, I think they probably have some regret. I think the Kathy Sheens and all them, the animals of politics that care only about themselves, the Pat Fahey's and the rest of those people, no, I don't. They could care less. They could run you over in the street as long as they could get a vote out of it. They wouldn't care. Um, so I don't think anybody cares. I think, they move on with their next victim and who they want to destroy. And if you get in their way, they're going to try to destroy you. You got to remember, Cynthia, I said in a lot of those back rooms when these people were doing things that I just thought were the most disgusting things in the world. And I just didn't want to be involved in it. And that's why I didn't get involved in the actual politics of everything because I thought they were dirty and they were rotten and you would plot to destroy somebody's life because they were going to run for a stupid, lousy county legislator seat, a county legislature that's worthless as a whole anyway. I mean, you're going to destroy somebody's life over that, but that's what they would do, and that's what they would plot, and that's what they would plan, and it's a disgusting business.
Well, it seems as though all of them should get lives, right?
Well, I like to think good people do the right thing for the right reasons. And then I found out that not everybody in politics is the right people. They get there and they always just try to figure out how to become powerful and feel important and want people to treat them like they're rock stars when in fact they should be, at the back of the parade because our job is really to be servants and not rock stars and not hot shots. And uh, but I guess that's just the reality of that business. And I don't know if it's ever going to change. It seems like it's getting worse than better. I think the country's getting worse than better, and not just because of who our president is or how the economy is, but the people who run it. Everything starts with the people in charge from top to bottom, and and they're ruthless, and they'll do anything they can to stay in a position of power, regardless who they have to slaughter for it.
Mm. So,
I mean, listen, Cynthia,
yeah,
you remember a guy named Randy Knifka, right?
of course.
And Randy Knifka was one of the leaders in destroying my life, right? Um, and then he went on a news station, a radio station, and two podcasts because you know why? I think he had remorse. And he came out in public, he told people that their goal was to destroy my life at all cost. And he told people how they were using my wife when she was at the lowest part of her life. A wonderful woman who hurt herself and got addicted to painkillers that they gave her to help her with the pain she had and left her on them for 9 months and three surgeries. And today they realize what it does to people, and millions of people have lost their lives over it. And you know, the lawsuits come and the lawsuits go, but Randy Knifka, I think he did feel bad after he's seen all of the destruction, and realized they were destroying my life over a little mayor's seat in Cohoes, New York, or a city council seat, or a county legislative seat. And I gave him a lot of credit because he came out and told the world what happened. Now, most people just tuned out of it because, you know, the people who could have wrote the bigger stories didn't care, and they didn't want to go write a story about, you know, everybody coming after me to destroy me. It was a better story that I was like Snidely Whiplash as the mayor of Cohoes, and they didn't care about the truth. But
Randy moved on to Florida.
I think he's back in this area now.
Oh, he is.
I think so. And you know, as much as I really had a lot of hatred for him after they did what they did, I at least found some new respect that he was willing to say, "Hey, we did a terrible thing to this guy, and I got to tell the truth. I can't let it all harbor in my heart. You know, all of the stuff they made up. I mean, there was politicians paying my wife to write things down and lie about it, and they would tell her what to write, and then they would send it to the Times Union. The Times Union was out to kill me, and they would take and write stories. I remember they wrote a story about the city Christmas party, and Shawn Morse was at the door collecting the money and had a big pocket full of cash. Um, and that was part of their story, only to find out that it was a free party and nobody was collecting no money. But there was no retraction for that. There was no
Wow.
retraction when I got cleared in family court and won custody of my kids. There was no retraction of any of that. So if you really were writing stories or doing this because you thought it was real, wouldn't you then come out and kind of clear a man's life that you destroyed when you found out it wasn't?
Mm.
And they nobody done that. So, you know, they're all in cahoots together.
So, do you think that the Times Union is as corrupt as the politicians?
Oh, I certainly do.
Okay.
I certainly do. I don't believe a thing that comes out of their paper. It's funny, you know, they'll kill Danny McCoy like he's, you know, the worst man in the world. Maybe they don't like his politics, but the story should be about politics and his policies, not about him on a personal level. But I'll open up the newspaper and they're trying to destroy him, you know, for all kinds of different things. And then you turn the page and you know all these bad things are happening and all these politicians that are doing like, horrible things, and they won't say a word about them. Yeah, I think they pick and choose who they like personally and who they want to kill personally, and they write the stories about them in a slanted way, misleading, misguided, all for the purpose of destroying people.
Hmm.
And that's the media we have today.
So, ultimately, as far as what's going to happen to New York City, what's your final thoughts?
Well, I think Cuomo will not win. I think the socialist will win. I think New York City will be sadly um, misguided. I think the people will become great examples of how Socialism has destroyed many other countries where, Venezuela was once a very wealthy country and now they eat out of garbage cans. And maybe sometimes you have to have that happen, Cynthia. Maybe that's all part of the snake who sheds his skin, right? They're going to have bad things happen before they shed their skin. And I'm really sad about it again because I know people that live there and work there, and I know how it's changed so much. And I know that crime, when you don't have enough cops, will grow, and all of the other things will not work. Government owned grocery stores and free trains, and I used to say to my kids all the time, there's a lot of things free in the world. Even the cheese in a mousetrap is free, but there's a price to pay, isn't there?
Mhm.
And I think that's what will happen when this guy wins. The only hope that I have is that his socialist disease doesn't spread across the country, because it seems like it's a lot of young kids who have never really had to go out there and work a day in their life because the government was handing them all this stuff during COVID. They were making $900 a week on unemployment for 2 years during COVID. There's free this and there's free that, and now they don't want to work, and they don't want to go out there and understand they have to earn a living, and the value of a hard day's work, and the value of buying your own house, and they're gonna think that free grocery stores and free trains and free this and free that is great until it collapses, until they wake up one day and they're a little older and they want to have a family, and they realize the government in New York City owns their lives and will control them like pieces on a monopoly board. you know um, but maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what will put us back in the right path. Who knows?
Would you
What
run
do I know?
would you run for mayor again?
No, I found peace in my life, and you know, um, that's not part of it.
Okay. Shawn, it's been a pleasure talking to you. You've been listening to Shawn Morse, who's the former mayor of Cohoes, New York. I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is Focus on the Candidates. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
Take care, Cynthia. Thank you.